We're live.
All right, this is the Senate Education Committee on the 24th of February. We're back after a short break, shifting gears going back to Act 73 of 25 and looking forward. And we have a few witnesses, three witnesses here this afternoon. And we invited them in to react, give some initial reactions, initial thoughts to the map that was proposed last week, and the accompanying language about reducing the number of SUs from down to from 23, I think, down to 11, and then within the SDs in the big gray area here, letting it happen organically in a relatively short amount of time, but the same thing of reducing down from 23 to 12. And then reducing from a total of 119 districts to half or less than half. And so there's the initial map. By the way, we have an afternoon, Thursday afternoon, we have an hour and a half set aside for school board members in particular to come in and make any suggestions about adjustments to the boundary lines of the SUs. So we have a little time set aside specifically for that. But today it's just to hear from a few witnesses with some initial reaction and give us a sense of what the field is thinking. So we dug down with the field a little bit. First, we have Dr. Cheryl Charles.
Yep. And Dr.
Chair of the Wyndham Northwest Northeast Supervisory Committee.
You want to sit together?
Yeah, sure.
Do you mind?
No,
Strength in numbers.
We're doing this together.
It's the same testimony, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, if you don't mind, thank you. So you did just introduce me, but for the record, I'm Cheryl Charles, the chair of the Westminster School Board, chair of the Wyndham Northeast Supervisory Union Board, and I'm chair of the Rural School Community Alliance Steering Committee. Go ahead, Jean.
Jeannie Albert, I'm the chair of the Lincoln School District Board, within Lincoln, and I'm also a member of the Rural School Community Alliance Steering Committee.
So you have two school board members right now, and we are delighted to come back again. Thank you very much for the opportunity. And we also, so we're speaking on behalf of the Rural School Community Alliance, having sent out a requested field to give us some insight about what their reactions to the both maps would be. But before we get into the specifics, we actually want to thank you all, the Senate Education Committee, for how authentically you've been reaching out to people to get a diversity of testimony, including rural voices. So thank you. And thank you also for creating a welcoming environment. We appreciate being asked to be here. And the fact that you also went out in the summer and the fall and went out and saw people in the field is also something people notice and appreciate. So thank you for that. So as the senator said, we've been asked to offer testimony about the proposed school governance map and the associated proposal. I'd like to reiterate a few points that we've made before because they're relevant to your consideration of the maps and the proposal. First, there really is no evidence that forced mergers into larger supervisory districts will save money or improve educational outcomes. Research and Vermont evidence does, however, support savings and other benefits from voluntary mergers and the shared services models that you're looking at, including supervisory unions. Further, cooperative education service areas, or VOCEs, can be implemented quickly statewide in Vermont as a way to achieve cost savings and efficiencies. Supervisory unions, again, since you were looking at these various models, supervisory unions do demonstrate cost savings and improved educational quality while maintaining community vitality and democratic values, especially in rural Vermont. And the evidence does show that supervisory unions are the most educationally sound and cost-effective governance model, again, for most of rural Vermont. And one last point, speaking especially for the rural Vermonters, school closures should require, if they are to occur, should require a vote of the townspeople. So while we, the Rural School Community Alliance, we don't support any form of forced merger, we do commend you for making supervisory unions an essential part of the map that you put forward, as well as voluntary mergers. Both those are things that you have emphasized. So knowing that both the House Ed Committee and the Senate Education Committee are considering maps, we last Friday developed a survey and sent it out. This is Friday, this is Tuesday now. We sent a survey out and got responses that we're sharing with you today. And we posed the questions. It was an electronic survey. We gave them links to the maps in both the House and the Senate. And we asked them what they thought. And so, and I will say also, because we did this quickly, we did it on Friday, we have given you a summary from yesterday afternoon. We can provide more detail. What we're giving you right now is high level because we obviously analyzed the results pretty quickly, but we feel confident that we could tell you what at a high level folks reported. Again, that we could give you more detail. We also urge you, because some of the specifics in these responses that we'll share with you are very specific to the map, that we will be happy to give you the names. People are happy to have you hear from them directly. It's better to hear that from them when it comes to the actual map. So you can see that of those people who responded, of the 75% were actual school board members, elected members right now of school boards. A few others were administrators, the board members, central office staff. I could list for you the entities that we heard from. They're in our testimony, everywhere from Caledonia Central. It's a long list. I think it's about 16 or 17 that we heard from. We get a 20% weighted response.
Just about, yeah, just in a few days.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
So, but then when we asked them about the maps, the house map, 95% rejected it. Doesn't work for them. Of the Senate map, it was about 50-50. And then we asked them, if you didn't support the map, what would have to change? So you see in our test.
If I can interrupt, just for clarity, when you said the Senate map, talking about Senator Baumgart's map or Senator Heffernan map?
Oh, I'm sorry, it was the Senator Baumgart's map, the one, yeah, that he was holding up a lot.
And you only had 20 responses so far.
So far, that's right. And this is the representatives in the Rural School Community Alliance. So they tend to be school board chairs. Yeah. And then again, when we asked them what would have to change with respect to the house map, you can see these are this is a summary of the major themes that came out. There's more detail behind all of this, but the first response was the house map, in order to be acceptable, would have to include supervisory unions. Another theme.
Did they say why?
I beg your
Did they
pardon.
rationalize it?
Well, we've got all kinds of reasons for that you've seen in the testimony. But merging again, a preference for supervisory unions to merge into larger ones would make it larger supervisory unions would be more acceptable than forced mergers into large supervisory districts. Once again, house map is forced, it's not voluntary. So that was a major reason for their not preferring it. That the house map doesn't preserve school choice and doesn't show sufficient respect for the geographic differences that are occurring out there. When we pose the same question, how would the Senate map have to change to be acceptable? It was a preference to implement the cooperative education service areas, or BOCES, before a merger process. It's just a sequence that many of the respondents preferred. That then the second category of responses for how to make it acceptable is where they got into specific details about where they fit. And that's where we'll help you follow up with those folks if you'd like to do that. And then more options for voluntary supervisory unions than the map that you presented provided.
Are you still accepting responses?
Yes.
Okay.
And we'll be happy to. We just did this knowing we were coming in today. It took us a little bit of time to put it together. So with that, Dr. Albert.
Guess I'm gonna pick up from there. And I would say also some of the, just to go back to Senator Weeks, your question about did they provide any other detail? Some of the other options listed in that chart with green bars gives you an idea of there are some additional things they were thinking about, maybe when they were hoping for more SUs. There was some people who were thinking about the geographic considerations that happened with a forced district merger, or and some of them talked about choice. There were different things that they brought up. And I'm going to actually highlight the last question we asked. It was a very short survey. We just really asked for reactions to the maps, and then to, as Cheryl said, to what could improve them, and then also just general feedback about either the maps or broad issues about education reform. And some of those highlights were interest or talking about the need for adequate time for planning with new partners, support for the Act 73 redistricting task force recommendations, the need for financial and student outcome analysis before enacting major change. These are things I'm sure you have heard. Addressing major cost drivers, including health insurance, mental health, transportation, and respecting current articles of agreement, and allowing when new entities are formed, local development of new articles of agreement. So those are some of the additional themes, along with the ones that that came up that Cheryl talked about. So well, I mean, with this as background, and well, actually, I'll say just one other thing I thought was interesting. The issue that was much more prevalent when responding to the map that that Senator Baumgartner was showing was much more direct. If there was not acceptable, it seemed to be much more about their specific situation. So I thought that was helpful to know. It was helpful for us and maybe helpful for you. So, we wanted to share that. But that being said, there was no question at the Senate map. This map Senator Baumgartner presented was far preferable to Vermonters who were in rural communities in our alliance. And given that this comparative preference is largely driven, along with inclusion of supervisory unions, by a focus on voluntary mergers, we want to just offer a few comments about the critically important element of voluntary change. So a steadfast commitment to change through voluntary mergers really is essential. Research on school district mergers confirms that forced mergers are much less likely to succeed, in large part because voluntary mergers build sufficient trust and respect to withstand the uncertainty, disagreements, challenging decisions, and disruption that change inevitably brings. Minimizing disruption is especially important in the realm of education, where children often bear the negative consequences of change made without such trust. In Vermont, prior experiences of forced school district mergers have left many communities with added wariness, even in the face of reassurances that voluntary truly means voluntary. And Vermonters are ready to solve problems together, but care must be taken to develop processes for change that are driven by evidence and include authentic opportunities for feedback and improvements based on local knowledge. A few other points relative to voluntary change that we wanted to add and offer as recommended principles that could be part of the process that was proposed, that if districts do merge voluntarily, that they would not be required to undertake further merger, that only like operating districts may merge. You were having that conversation earlier today with Beth St. James. Only contiguous districts may merge. We also feel special review is needed for a proposed merger of districts that vary greatly in size. When you have one big one and a little one, that can cause challenges, and potential appeals process, which could be applied in a number of ways, but specifically here for towns in merged districts where further merging is proposed to allow for potentially different voluntary associations. What that's about is if you're already in a merged district, your town doesn't have a lot of agency. I mean, you have mutual agency as part of that district, but you no longer do. And if that district is then going to merge, it's basically going to dissolve, become a whole much bigger district. There might be opportunities for the individual towns to decide they want to do something different. So thinking about agency is really important in terms of success. We offered at the end a preliminary timeline for especially the CISA approach that we do favor, and I'll come back to it at the end just to highlight a couple of things. But to conclude the primary points we wanted to make, Vermonters are strongly opposed to forced mergers, as evidenced by public engagement with the redistricting task force. Therefore, you are on solid ground by taking a voluntary approach to mergers over time. The merged supervisory district model has not produced cost savings compared to multi-member supervisory unions. We've shared some of that summary information before. We didn't include the charts this time, but we have them available. Once again, you're on solid ground by creating an approach in a map that depends on supervisory unions as well as supervisory districts, especially in rural areas where large geographic area and sparse population makes it impractical, sometimes maybe even harmful. It makes sense to achieve scale by a combination of supervisory unions and BOCES or CISAs with their proven record of cost effectiveness, both nationally and specifically in Vermont. Cost sharing through CISAs and potentially larger supervisory unions will likely suggest further voluntary merger opportunities after local management of administrative and other services is lifted up to the CISA level. And during this phase, the state could facilitate merger conversations between SU and SD neighbors with expanded high school and CTE opportunities a priority. And finally, for rural districts that don't operate in some or all grades, it is important that they remain members of supervisory unions. Non-operating districts, and I think you heard some testimony about this last week, possibly other times, are important to towns by allowing families to find the best fit for their children's and their own overall needs, and provide a safeguard for the future should enrollment once again grow, and allow continued local oversight for the quality of education and its cost to serve their students. So I'll just to orient yourself, we'll just spend a very short part of a minute to say something about this timeline on the back. We just felt that because there's some overlap with an approach involving an interest in voluntary mergers, either at the SU level or at the school district level, this map, we stated our preference for CISAs, and this map it starts right off with a map, a statewide map, where preliminary, where everybody would be assigned to a CISA or BOCES. And we just wanted to lay out how that might look over a 2-year period. Could it be done? And we kind of outlined some of the more important steps. And two that I just wanted to highlight, because we didn't mention it earlier, are the importance of basing merger and other collaborative opportunities on evidence. And we are promoting the idea of having a foundational data analysis program that would be supported by the AOE, and it would allow districts to actually have the information we need to know where are the best opportunities for sharing services. What's not going to be maybe the best type of alignment to make, that type of information. And we also recommend in this timeline soon having a comprehensive performance review and capacity evaluation of the AOE itself, given all that we have to do. So,
Okay, thank you. So I saw a couple hands here.
yes.
So when we've been talking about mergers and we want to see it done, at local level, will it help if the state puts out or we put out criteria that we're looking for that will help drive that to happen more organically, if you will? Because we've already seen up in Washington that both schools are small and the townsfolk still voted to keep them open.
Mm.
But if you set out a criteria of financial status and maybe even student status. Do you think that is do you believe that would be a good starter point if we were gonna let it do it organically so they can look at, oh, here's what the legislators are thinking to make our school system better? Or is it just, well, if we want to join, we'll join. If we don't, we don't.
I mean, my view is that the more information people have about what the benefits could be, better. That was sort of, the part of what I was getting at with this data analysis program is, if you're presented with information as a school board member, if I'm presented with information that says, hey, you've got this neighbor here, and here's some areas where you both could benefit by joining forces in some way, either through the more, the less intensive method of the BOCES, where it's not like you're making a new school district, but maybe through actual merger of school districts. I think that is one thing that would be received really well, actual support for understanding what the benefits would be.
Well, we've seen the benefits of consolidating and having more students under one roof and that. So them are statistics we actively look at. And where the disconnect comes is when you have schools, like Lincoln has done a great job of staying in budget. And if you're doing that, you shouldn't even be looked at. Like, hey, there's no reason to even. However, we look at Beeman Academy, 36 kids to one school. Now, just what happened to Ripton? You eventually lose scale, and you have, really, it should no longer be a hard method. It is our financial input. And that is one of the issues I've seen with everybody that's come in. It's like, well, we want the data. Well, it's pretty easy to figure out if you only have 36 kids in a massive school.
I mean, I think one thing I'll just clarify that in this discussion and testimony, we're not really looking at, I think the question you're talking about is maybe consolidation of schools, which is an important question. I'm not saying it is, but from the point of view of actually just merging districts, that's what we were talking about, the information there.
Organically, we'd like to see it happen, but at some point, if you're going, it's not working, when do you step in and say, all the data shows that you two come together, really should do that. Should the state at that point go, we showed you the cost savings. I know you don't really want to, but are you open to it?
It's already in action.
Yeah.
So, Senator Lynch.
Oh, just a comment. One of your points was that, they're concerned that there was not adequate time. There wasn't more adequate time needed for planning with new partners. They could be doing that now. I brought Senator Weeks and I were at a school board meeting the other night, and I made that comment. It's nothing says you can't start merger talks right now. And a couple of board members took offense at that. I mean, I understand it. They're part-time and they're time dependent. To get something like that done, but that could be happening right now. And to the point where they're actually, I know we do have some schools that are looking to merge in my district. So,
Senator Weeks.
yeah, if I can, I'm going to challenge you just a little bit. Two data points in your briefing, in your summary. One is that you say that Vermonters are ready to solve problems together. We've known the demographics, student populations. We know the demographics of the future. We know the birth rate could change, but we know what it is now. We know what it has been. We know this data for quite some time. So I kind of push back a bit on Vermonters are ready to solve this, because the history is that we have not. We're in this challenging scenario right now because we haven't reacted to what was already known. So it's pushback number one. I understand. I think what you're saying here is that there's a new mentality, a new spirit of central cooperation, etc. So I accept that, but I do push back on the fact that we already knew where we were heading. We've known this for quite some time. We've seen all the demographics. The second is that BOCES, BOCES has been in effect now for over a year. And I think we have one taker statewide for a coalition to create a BOCES. And again, if we're ready to solve this, the tools are on the table, people aren't picking them up. So while I'm greatly sympathetic with the other points made here about disruptions and what have you, we're at that inflection point, and something's got to happen. And do we take a slower approach? Do we take a faster approach? That's one of the questions that's circulating in probably every committee in the building right now. Anyway, I do have one other question, which isn't really related to what you have on paper, so you may not be prepared to actually provide a response, but I'm curious if the rural school community alliance has a policy position on statewide school choice. Is that anything you've ever wrestled with? No. Okay. Just curious. School choice in general?
I mean, we certainly have members who are, that's important, and others where it's not part of their,
Exactly.
reality. So we don't have like a position specific to it, except that we obviously acknowledge that it's important to some of our members.
Is that community dependent, whether they're in a scenario where school choice is part of the landscape?
And there's a great variety of it.
I mean, certainly when it comes to non-operators too. I mean, because that's the most obvious situation where you don't have your own school. And situations there, especially in extremely sparsely populated areas.
So is there any feel, this will be my last follow on, any feel for those members who are in communities that have choice? Do they tend to favor a continuation of choice, or do they tend to view choice as, an obstacle to some metric or other?
My sense is the ones who haven't wanted to continue.
Okay. And you have just a sense of like, is that of your members of your communities that you're representing? Is it half the communities have choice? 3/4?
I really don't know the answer.
We haven't tried to
Okay,
measure
okay.
that.
It's fair. I'm just trying to.
Yeah.
Access is the bigger issue. Yeah. I'd love to respond to you in a few minutes, but I understand there's more questions. Yeah.
You have a response to.
Well, to the senator, when you're talking about change that is so dramatic without evidence of cost savings, then it really gives me pause to come in and force consolidation. And so that's why we keep saying, look for the evidence, really show us if you're going to disrupt that many schools in the state, really show us that it'll save money and that it'll improve outcomes for kids. To the comment about the BOCES, yes, there is only one so far. It happens to be in the supervisory union I'm part of is a part of the, 7 issues, one school district that have created it. And we're already seeing savings. And I want us to, and that can be
How
done.
we pass them off?
Yeah.
Why we gave the opportunity?
Well, so we've done it, and it took, the Vermont Learning Collaborative, it took about 5 years to work on getting that kind of, looking for those opportunities, and then the law came, and then we acted on it as soon as we could. I think others will, because I think others will.
Are you, is that, is the BOCES within which you operate, is that within supervisory union or across the lines between supervisory unions?
It's 7 supervisory unions and 1 school district, which is Springfield.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so it's larger than what your map is proposed.
If I could just, so we're not here to disrupt schools. We're here to potentially disrupt admin. The admin layer, I have to reemphasize that in every opportunity. We're not looking to consolidate schools. We're looking here for consolidated admin that can make wiser decisions on wider geographic tracts. Regional.
Yep.
Please let's not, because we hear this often. We hear this everywhere we go. We're not looking to close schools. We're looking for better decisions about the schools that already exist.
Senator Sheen.
I think just a comment that I think it's important to keep in mind in response to Senator Williams, Senator Weeks regarding conversation of why aren't schools talking about merging now, or why aren't they taking steps to go through the BOCES process now? And I would suspect part of it has to do with the fact that for 2 years now, there has been a lot of uncertainty in which every month there's a new idea that will cause a certain district to think, oh yeah, we're definitely getting merged, or another district to think, or an SU to think that they're going to be losing some of their superintendents. And so when you have this much uncertainty from us in the next level of government, I'm not surprised that there may be districts or SUs that are very hesitant to undertake significant changes, whether it's going into a BOCES or going into a voluntary merger, when again, every couple of months there's a new idea that could completely that could turn their plans moved.
Can I disagree?
Yeah,
I agree with you 100%. We're talking about data that we've known for 20 years, reinforced 10 years, not changed 5 years. We're not talking about month to month. We're not talking about maps. We're talking about a scenario that's been unfolding right before our eyes. That's my.
I mean, 4 years ago, we weren't talking about enforcement orders.
But we should have been, because we live in a community where we have 7 high schools that are bumping into each other, and no one's willing to talk about the problem. Finally, the governor raised the flag. Now everybody's talking about the problem. So I think that was a good move. That's disruptive. I apologize for this, but as disruptive as it is, we are all talking about the problem. Thank God.
we have to have another witness. We don't want to miss, but quick questions. Okay. So, thank you.
I was gonna do what he did.
Thank you.
And we do have several members actually having these conversations. I just want to make sure to say that.
Well, I think everybody's having a conversation. I think it's a great thing. So where we land, we don't
Do the questions.
So your survey's still out there.
Oh, yeah.
Did you ask the question about school choice? Could you add that on your survey?
Could we?
see the rural community, rural school, community alliance could form an opinion.
Are you interested in, excuse me, the situations where they have choice, do they want to continue? Is that the question you're
The whole
interested in?
spectrum.
Yeah. Yeah.
The whole spectrum. Those that want half choice and those that don't
It's
have
hard,
choice.
it's already like the middle of the survey, so we're not gonna get the people who have already answered.
Okay.
But we will think about it, because we do surveys sort of periodically, so. Thank you for
It's
that.
gonna be important. Gonna be, maybe not right today, but over the next 2.5 months, it's gonna be a huge important issue.
And if I ask them the question, they may think that it may be an issue. Because it is.
All right, thank you.
So we have, Andrew Haas, Superintendent of the Wyndham Northeast Supervisory
Just a
Union.
second. Now we'll get one more test.
Um,
I'll catch you in the morning. Yeah, how early can I? Yeah.
so you can introduce yourself for the record.
Sure. My name is Andy Haas. I'm the superintendent from Wyndham Northeast Supervisory Union. And I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you today. I'm here to share my perspective on the proposed consolidation maps and strongly advocate for the power of voluntary collaboration through supervisory unions and educational service agencies.
Can you get a little here, Mike? We're having a little bit of a hard time hearing you. Just get a little closer.
Yeah,
You're
let me
doing-
see if I can.
Just a little bit closer will be fine.
Is that any better?
Yep. Yep.
So as my board members know all too well, whatever governance model we ultimately have, it's only relevant if it benefits our students. Our focus on Act 73 tends to be on cost savings. The truth is, larger districts and supervisory unions, no matter what they are, will most likely not lead to any cost savings. So I ask, what is best for our students? Currently, our education system is operating under immense stress. In this climate, implementing forced mergers would be highly disruptive to our students, staff, and communities. I believe that voluntary mergers can be more effective than forced ones. When our neighboring district was without a superintendent, I floated this exact idea. Mergers are approached voluntarily, and when they make financial and geographical sense in sparsely populated regions, Combining like operators within a supervisory union can be very practical. Unfortunately, the current Collin map eliminates the option for voluntary mergers. Wyndham Northeast Supervisory Union, I believe, is a model for how supervisory unions can be both cost-effective and supportive of our students. We have one collective bargaining agreement for both our professional and our support staff. We develop and support policies that are at the SU level while allowing the local district to pass policies they deem important. We've established a coordinated curriculum for all of our schools, and we continually present budgets to our taxpayers that are fiscally responsible. Supervisory unions are a vital structure component for rural Vermont, and I support their presence in rural regions. The current Conlin map does not include any supervisory unions. SUs work because they are allow distinct rural communities to share administrative overhead while maintaining a localized programming that students rely on. Erasing these structures raises significant concerns about the proposed map and the new language introduced into the committee. Instead of top-down consolidation, we should look towards collaborative models like boards of cooperative educational services, or BOSES, or comprehensive educational service areas, CESAs. 8 years ago, when I came to WNASU as the Director of Student Services, I experienced a deficit of programming and high cost of special education services. 5 years ago, I was a founding member of the Vermont Learning Collaborative Board. We already have a successful, scalable model right here in Vermont. In January 2026, the Vermont Learning Collaborative officially launched as the state's first established BOSES. The mission of BOSES is to jointly conduct educational programs and services for member supervisory unions and districts. This approach is designed to be cost-effective while increasing educational opportunities for children ages 3 through 22 and building staff capacity. Through collaborative educational service agencies, districts experience tangible benefits, cost savings in staff. Supervisory unions and districts can access part-time, full-time, or per diem positions to fill needs. This can save up to 50% or more per full-time equivalent position. There's an efficient evaluation services. Utilizing a regional service provider like VTLC saves member districts 20 to 50% on evaluation services with an average savings of 38%. There's a reduction in transportation fees. By offering local high-quality programming, districts can reduce their transportation fees by up to 85%. And professional development. Districts utilizing VTLC as a regional provider saw an average savings of 66% of professional development compared to hosting events individually. Local and virtual hostings also saved on staff time and transportation costs. Furthermore, ESA models provide broader, responsive service abilities, greater capacity to hire high-quality staff, cooperative purchasing power, and essential grant administration. Nationally, ESAs are recognized as the infrastructure that enables school systems to operate efficiently and deliver high-quality services regardless of a student's zip code. Forced consolidations overlook a geographical realities of Vermont and the dismantled supervisory unions that rural communities rely on. I urge the committee to support the advancement of Act 73 through viable, scalable models like BOSES that foster efficiency without sacrificing local identities. Let us prioritize voluntary collaboration and shared resources over mandated disruption. And let's continue to ask what is best for our students.
Quick question for our first question for you is, how many students are there within the BOSES that you formed?
Oh, I don't have that number in front of me exactly, but I mean, there are 8 school districts and supervisory unions that make up the whole piece. So
I have an answer here in the room.
About 8,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So any questions? So I think what you're saying is voluntary mergers, and you prefer kind of going to BOCES first before doing anything else.
Yeah, I mean, the idea, and I heard very loud and clear, this is about administrative, cost savings. The fact is that a larger geographical area, to get around, to be able to service those schools and everything, you're going to need a level of administration that currently exists. It's just, you're not going to be calling them superintendents, you're going to be calling them something else. That's just a fact of reality. So to say that any kind of mergers of districts are going to save money, that there's actually no research that actually shows that there's a savings of money for over 10 years. So after 10 years, you start to see a savings. So, by coming up with voluntary mergers, or even another crazy idea I had at one point was, don't hire any more superintendents. I've been the superintendent here for 5 years in our region with 13 13 superintendents in our region. In the 5 years that I've been a superintendent, there's only one superintendent who was in place before me. So in that 5 years, you could have consolidated down a whole bunch if you just said, don't hire superintendents. So if that's really the cost driver, then approach it that way. Stop talking it becomes disruptive. When I go to try and hire people right now, people don't even want to come work in Vermont because they ask the question, will you even be in existence next year? That's the reality that we are seeing. People don't, they want certainty. They want to know what's going to happen next. And if I can say to someone, yep, we're going to be merging in 2 years with this school district, but you're going to lose your job because those teachers are not going to have priority over your position, then I'm not going to be able to hire a teacher.
Did I see Hanover?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, you just said the BOCES 8,000 students inside it, so it's like that you're already showing savings that way, so that if we down to one superintendent over 8,000 students and the BOCES works, there could be savings there. Just saying that, not saying that's the right answer, but I'm just, you're putting out that shows that you put that many kids, we can save as much money as you were just showing.
So
it can't be done.
Over that 8,000 student area, you're talking about a 3-hour travel time one way. And that's only going north. If I'm going east, it's going to probably even take, or west, it's probably going to take me longer because of the mountains, because I don't have an interstate. So therefore, for one person to be overseeing that entire area, it's I can't even wrap my head around how to get around that whole area. So the fact is, then I'll need assistant superintendents. And then I'm going to hire assistant superintendents who are going to be regional superintendents. So when you look at some of and you talk with superintendents around the country, in some of these very large districts, there is a superintendent, but then there are regional superintendents. And then underneath the regional superintendents are assistant superintendents. So you continue to maintain an administrative structure because you cannot effectively have enough supervision for that large area. The reason why the BOCES is working right now is we're putting a lot of and for full disclosure, I do sit on the board for the Vermont Learning Collaborative, but we are putting a lot of emphasis in the professional development. We have finally gotten to the point where we have one professional development day in everybody's calendar for next year, that everyone has taken that day so that we can do regional professional development. And that's a start. It's taken 5 years to get there, but we are trying to look at those kind of regional things. And to be able to offer those professional developments where I don't have to put someone in a car and send them up to Montpelier or Burlington all the time.
Thank you. Thanks. Yeah, I appreciate the time. I think we're done today, so we can adjourn and we can go off.